ABC7 News.
Tonight on the Barbara Walters Special.
I know you don't like to talk about it, but when you watch your concert, everybody can see that you're wearing a silver band. Can you tell us what symbolically wearing the so-called purity ring means? Describe this past year for me. What have you learned?
I really learned that being vulnerable is not being weak, and that love is not just about giving, it's about receiving as well.
I think when the wife left, you know, it all caved in, and I didn't want to be here, and...
You just said, I didn't want to be here. Right. So what you're telling me is that you wanted to die and you were suicidal. Is that what you're telling me?
The night of the Oscars is the epitome of what showbiz is all about. More show than biz, really. That feeling, it could only happen on that night.
Good evening. Welcome to our 28th Academy Award special. 28 years, where will it all end? Probably at a bar like this with a martini. But not yet. So forget everything you think you already know about the people you're about to meet. You may have heard, for example, that the musical group, the Jonas Brothers, are real brothers. And they are huge. Tonight, you'll learn why. You may know that the beautiful Anne Hathaway is nominated for Best Actress for Rachel Getting Married. But how has she coped with the ups and downs of this turbulent year? And you may know that Mickey Rourke is nominated for Best Actor for his wrenching performance in The Wrestler. But did you know that a dog saved his life? And the 3 things he says you can't do with an Oscar. And Hugh Jackman is hosting the Academy Awards for the very first time tonight. But we have the story of an even bigger night in his life. Stay tuned for the closing credits, because Hugh gives me a gift I will never forget. Much more. Stay with us. First, let's get the name straight. Kevin, age 21, the oldest, the extrovert. Joe, age 19, middle child, heartthrob. Nick, 16, the baby, musical. Together they are the Jonas Brothers, real brothers, the 3 biggest names to capture the hearts of adolescent girls of this century. In the past few months, they have played Times Square on the headlined the American Music Awards.
Oh, say, can you see?
Sung for the outgoing president and the incoming first family. Performed at the Grammys with Stevie Wonder. Team Jonas, living the dream. The Jonas family originally settled in Dallas, where Kevin Sr. preached the gospel and Mom Denise taught sign language. Everybody sang in Dad's church choir. This is Kevin. I am a man. A move to New Jersey put Manhattan a short bus ride away. Nick found his way to Broadway in Les Miserables. Joe sang opera in La Boheme. And all 3, including Kevin, did commercials.
He talks like crazy.
They picked up instruments, started playing together. But the drive, and some would say the raw talent, rested in baby Nick's soul. He was the first signed to a record deal. He was also the first to see his record flop. Then a producer at Columbia heard the boys perform together and signed them to a deal. This time, they got to experience failure together. With no money coming in, they found an audience on the internet and got the attention of Disney's Hollywood Records.
It's Hannah Montana!
Which led to their big break, appearing on Hannah Montana. and then going on tour with its star, Miley Cyrus. And now they fill arenas by themselves. The boys write their own music and play their own instruments. And any time spent with the Jonases on tour reveals a faith-based family.
Bring it in. Throwing punchlines, no one wins.
Although the boys have been linked with Miley Cyrus, Taylor Swift, and others, they wear purity rings that signal no sex until marriage. Mom and Dad are tour bus chaperones, and perhaps the least likely stage parents you will ever meet. How do you balance your very strong faith with the life of rock stars?
You have to really draw on that faith on a daily basis to know that our strength and every gift that we all have, that the boys have, comes from the Lord.
Every room I walk in, the crew tell me, thank you for raising good boys.
The family is living back in Dallas now. The brothers have been busy, recording a new album and shooting a new TV series called Jonas for the Disney Channel, set to debut in May. By the way, there is another Jonas brother. Frankie, the bonus Jonas they call him, was born in 2000. He already has his own band, no kidding.
Here we go.
We went to a local theater to see evidence that they are about to become movie stars.
They don't know we're coming, so.
Hi, guys.
Their new film, Jonas Brothers, the 3D concert experience, opens on Friday. Okay, here we go. Let us start with Kevin. You describe Joe. Joe, you describe Nick. Nick, you describe Kevin. Kevin?
Okay, so I'm describing Joe. He's, a great front man of the band. It really, each one of us, I think, has our role, but I think for Joe, he really stands out and has that Mick Jagger-esque feel to him.
Huh. Well, listen, Mick Jagger, okay. You describe Nick.
Nick, he's definitely the president. I mean, he's the leader type in the band, for sure.
Why? He's the youngest.
I know, exactly. People always think he's the one that we pick on, but he is wise for his age.
Okay, Mr. President, you describe Kevin.
Kevin is very enthusiastic, and definitely also a dreamer, which is good, and at times kind of challenging, but it's always fun.
On a serious note, Nick, 3 years ago, you had a terrible drop in weight, and you were even afraid that you were so ill that you might die. Tell us about it.
Yeah, I got diagnosed with type 1 diabetes November 16th, 2005, I believe. And very, very scary moment. And I actually lost 15 pounds in about 2 weeks.
You were very public about having diabetes.
I think you need to learn how to manage it yourself before you can kind of be an encouragement to other people who might be dealing with it. And then while we were over in Canada shooting Camp Rock, I wrote a song called A Little Bit Longer. And
title of an album.
Yes.
Yeah.
Waiting on the cure, none of them are sure. Little bit longer, and I'll be fine.
And everyone sings along. And I say, for all those who have said that I've inspired them, I want you to know that you're my inspiration.
You have learned to live with your disease. You wear a pump now that puts insulin into your body. And is it, you have to prick your finger every day to know your insulin level? Do you still have to?
I check my blood sugar about 10 to 12 times every day.
Pricking your finger 10 to 12 times
Yes.
a day.
And the pump is amazing.
Do you use it when you're on stage?
All the time. It's on me 24/7, and I change it, change the position every 3 days.
I know you don't like to talk about it, but when you watch your concert, everybody can see that you're wearing a silver band. Each of you do wear it. It signifies your values. Can you tell us what symbolically wearing the so-called purity ring means?
Yeah, for us it means that we'll treat ladies with respect and I think just to be gentlemen and to do our best to make our mom proud.
You know, when you see these young girls, and some of them aren't that young, I don't know, how do you resist temptation? I mean, there they all are for each of you. And each of them has a favorite. Isn't it hard?
Of course. It's hard doing that, for sure. I think what we do is we do have that such a family base, you know. We end up going back on the tour bus or the plane with Mom every night.
Okay, so now I have to ask the dreaded questions. Bear with me.
Uh-oh.
Okay, so Nick, for almost 2 years you were linked with Miley Cyrus, and of course you were, you know, part of her show. You were both very young. You were 14. Was it a real romance?
I don't know what you call a real romance at 14, but you know, she's a friend now, and that's what's important.
She said, we were in love with each other. For 2 years, he was basically my 24/7.
I think that it really just comes down to a good friendship, and whatever that has in the future.
Okay, so Joe, I'm moving on.
Oh, great.
Okay, anyone in your life?
Um,
We heard country star Taylor Swift.
we're friends.
Am I going to find anything out here?
Probably not.
Probably not. I'll try once more. Okay, once more. Kevin, anyone? Just friends.
Just friends.
I'm so penetrating, right?
It's all good.
Do you think that one of you might turn out to be like Justin Timberlake and break away from the group, Joe?
You know, we always talk about solo projects, and I think for us, it would never be a solo project, it'd be a side project. There's no way we can just break up because, I mean, I live in the same house as them, so it's going to be pretty difficult.
You know, you have very young fans, and you yourselves are very young. The fans are going to grow up. You're going to grow up. Nobody is a teen idol forever. You're aware of that.
Absolutely. Yeah. We hope that the fans will grow with us.
And who's to say what tomorrow will bring, but we do believe that our fans are amazing and that they will be there for us forever. And we believe
it. Doesn't usually happen.
It doesn't usually, but these fans are different. And like we said, we're all growing up together, and they mean a lot to us, and I think they know that we really do care for them. And I believe that the favor will be returned.
You have been nominated Best Actress for an Academy Award. What would it mean to you to win? Could you have imagined a year ago that you would be nominated for an Academy Award? Hugh, you are hosting the Academy Award show for the very first time.
Yes.
Are you nervous?
Oh, a little bit. I mean, I like to call it excited.
The Barbara Walters Special, brought to you by Kohl's Department Stores. Kohl.
Hello. Relax, it's seltzer.
Tonight, Anne Hathaway is Oscar-nominated for playing a drug addict who insists on being the center of attention at her own sister's wedding. The film is Rachel Getting Married.
I'm sorry, family members only in this discussion.
It's a performance that perfectly blends narcissism and self-loathing. Everything out of her mouth feels like a cry for help. You don't know whether to hug her or smack her.
I wonder why. What do you expect me to do? Burn the house down?
That was a mattress fire. It was at a sleepover. Okay, you know what? Fine. You both. You win. I'm gonna get hazmat tattooed across my forehead.
But don't worry, Anne Hathaway fans everywhere. She's still a good girl. A Jersey girl, in fact. Father was an attorney, and mother was a stage actress. One day, little Anne was watching Mom play Evita and got the acting bug. In 2001, she was literally crowned the next big thing and cast opposite Julie Andrews in The Princess Diaries. She was 18.
Me?
A princess? Shut up!
It was a huge hit, so she played a princess again in the sequel, and played another princess in Ella Enchanted, and finally abdicated her throne by playing a commoner opposite Meryl Streep in The Devil Wears Prada.
You have no style or sense of fashion.
I think that depends on what you're...
No. That wasn't a question.
The entire Hollywood kingdom has opened up for her now. She gets cast in broad comedies and serious dramas.
You know, you've been going up to Wyoming all these years. Why can't your buddy come down here to Texas and fish?
Bye.
In fact, it was the perfect Cinderella story until her carriage turned into a pumpkin this past year. She broke up with her longtime beau, Italian real estate developer Raffaello Foglieri. He was then arrested on charges of wire fraud, conspiracy, and money laundering. He went to prison. And other than a joke here and there, Anne refuses to talk about it.
I broke up with my Italian boyfriend, and 2 weeks later he was sent to prison for fraud. We've all been there, am I right, ladies?
She has moved on toward her own revised version of Happily Ever After. Describe this past year for me. What have you learned?
This past year was very big.
It was a big year.
It was a big year. It's wonderful to be able to celebrate with people, and it's wonderful to turn around to those same people in certain moments and say, I need help. This was the year that I really learned that being vulnerable is not being weak, and that love is not just about giving; it's about receiving as well. And that is a lesson that's also changed my life.
And you needed it this year.
I needed it this year.
So you have been nominated Best Actress for an Academy Award. What would it mean to you to win?
It just seems like it would be too much to hope for. I got to play this role, and I'd hoped to be nominated. I'm not going to lie. I was really hoping to be nominated. Yeah. But that was it. And I think the key to all of it is just to breathe. So my favorite advice in life is, you know, the character that Ellen plays in Finding Nemo, Dory, and she says, just keep swimming, just keep swimming.
And that's what you're doing.
Great advice. So that's what I try to do.
You were in Brokeback Mountain. With Heath Ledger.
Yeah.
And of course he's nominated. Tell me what you remember of him.
Well, I've never really spoken about it, but the thing that I remember about Heath was how alive he was, how much energy he had. He couldn't sit still. And he was beautiful. He was always very generous.
I want to go back a little bit to your childhood, okay? Because you had a pretty normal childhood, as childhoods go. Loving parents, older brother, younger brother. It doesn't sound like the right drama for an actor.
I know, it doesn't seem like it's the right drama.
You know, where's the angst? Where's the pain? You know?
I mean, I'm an actress. I'm naturally dramatic. I get a hangnail and I spiral. But what you just described is, you know, is very idyllic, but there's a lot of other things that you don't want to go into.
Yeah, but your parents have been married for years, and I met them. They're very funny.
Aren't they lovely? I love them. My parents were wonderful.
Yeah, I met them with a friend, you know, and we said, how come you've been married for so many years, 28 years? And you know what they said?
My mother said if you brought this up, I was not allowed to say what they said.
What they said was, great sex.
Yes.
You must have been so proud.
I cringe just a little bit more every time I think of that. Yes, you know, it's kind of one of those things that I'm so happy for them, but I just don't want to know about it.
Just don't tell me. Do it and keep the door closed. Do you think about marriage now?
I don't really. But last year I started to think about it. I thought, well, if I never got married, how would I feel about that? And I realized that I would feel just fine.
Why?
Because I have no complaints about my life.
Interesting.
But I do want children.
Ah, okay. So you could imagine having children and not being married.
I could. I think I could do that.
You're 26, you're very young. But we don't see you in the tabloids, and you're not dancing on the tables. And yet you have said, I do debaucherous things all the time. You just don't read about it. What have you done?
Oh, Barbara. I have been known to drink a whole half bottle of wine in one sitting.
Heavens.
Heavens. I do terrible things. I really do. I just have very discreet friends.
But you don't do the party scene very much. You're not on the town.
I'm too self-conscious. I mean, honestly, I've never been that type of person. I'd had an experience in college beforehand where I was at a party and people were passing cocaine around, and I remember looking at it and just going, that is not a horse that I can ride. I'm never going to do that. So I just passed the tray along and left the room, and that was that. And my mother, who is a very, very talented actress, you know, didn't have the same opportunities that I've had, and I knew that drugs would mess with that. Being an actor basically is hard enough without complicating it with hard drugs, you know, and all that stuff.
So where do you see yourself in 10 years?
10 years, I would love to be a mom, be in love, own property, and have traveled Asia. That's what I'd like to have done in 10 years. That's my absolute must-have. Those are my must-haves.
All right, finish this sentence for me. Anne Hathaway is...
Well, that depends on what your definition of is, but no, sorry.
That'll teach me. Okay.
No. Anne Hathaway is happy. Very, very, very over-the-moon happy. Yeah, definitely.
I want to talk about something very painful and very important to you, and that's your marriage.
Peter Allen has a great line. He goes, I know what you're thinking, you know. You're just sitting there looking at me and thinking, no, is he or isn't he? Well, it's true. I am Australian.
How much do you...
Anytime you try a decent crime, you got 50 ways you can f up.
Mickey Rourke could have been a contender. Body heat put him on the map.
You're a virgin, aren't you?
Dinah made him a star.
You got a lot to learn.
And the 80s were his for the taking.
What did you say?
But he made some bad choices.
You can take off your dress.
Make that a lot of bad choices.
You do have a husband.
No husband.
He started out looking like the next James Dean, ended up looking like a bad caricature of Mickey Rourke. In less than 1 decade, he transformed his career and his face into something unrecognizable and unbankable.
And I got everything I thought that I ever wanted.
By the time he made Wild Orchid in 1990, a softcore flop with his soon-to-be wife Carrie Otis, Mickey was a joke. At home, however, it was no laughing matter. Mickey had an angry streak, and everyone in Hollywood knew about it and made certain to avoid it.
Mickey Marialito Rourke.
Flat broke, he actually gave up acting for a while to try boxing. But 5 years of having his face further rearranged was enough. 14 years ago, he started getting help, went into therapy. He got out of his marriage and back into serious acting.
There ain't no squaring it.
The films got better.
This is the old days, man, the bad days, the all-or-nothing days. They're back.
Then along comes a part about a washed-up wrestler, still clinging to his glory days in the 80s, who's destroyed his career and his life and wants one last chance. Ring a bell?
I'm an old, broken-down piece of meat.
His performance, directed by Darren Aronofsky, is like salt in an open wound. Raw nerves are exposed, and the pain is unbearable.
Okay.
Tonight, he is Oscar-nominated for Best Actor for The Wrestler.
Mickey Rourke.
6 weeks ago, he won the Golden Globe and thanked the ones who never gave up on him.
I'd like to thank all my dogs, the ones that are here, the ones that aren't here anymore, because sometimes when a man's alone, that's all you got is your dog.
Do you have dogs when you're alone? He lives a quiet life with his dogs in Manhattan. For 18 years now, Mickey and his beloved Chihuahua Loki have been inseparable. This past Tuesday, Loki passed away. It's a bittersweet time for Mickey, but now in his 50s, he has earned that second chance. A real actor again, no joke. At the Golden Globes, you thanked your dogs.
Yeah.
Why did you thank your dogs?
Oh, God, that's a real touchy subject with me. When I sort of self-destructed and everything came apart about 14 years ago or so, or started even before that, I think, you know, I was standing in a house like this. I remember it was thundering and raining, and the wife had left, the career was over. When my money ran out, I had to take a movie one time that I took it just for the paycheck, and I just felt like I hoarded myself out, and I lost something.
Where were the dogs in all this?
At that point, the dogs were there. The dogs were there when no one else was there. And I think when the wife left, you know, it all caved in, and I didn't want to be here. And I was going through some tough and...
You just said, I didn't want to be here.
Right.
So what you're telling me is that you wanted to die and you were suicidal. Is that what you're telling me?
There's always like a weak way out. I've always known that. Okay. I'm gonna have to talk a little slow right now so I don't lose it.
Okay.
It's like, I never really want, yeah, I didn't want to be here, but I didn't want to kill myself, you know. I think that's the chicken way out, and also I'm Catholic. And I mean, I just wanted to push a button and disappear. And I think I hadn't left the house for 4 or 5 months, and I was sitting in the closet. I was sleeping in the closet for some reason, and then I looked, I don't know, my dog, Bojack, he made a sound, like, oop, you know, just like a little, almost like a human sound, and I looked over, and he looked up at me like this. And he like,
You okay?
It was like, yeah, it was like, who's gonna take care of me? Yeah. And that's what that has given me. In other words, I mean, I don't have kids. Like, the dogs became everything, and the little dog was looking at me going, who's gonna take care of me? And the dogs kept me here.
More of Barbara's interview with Mickey Rourke when we return.
What's your name?
Nathaniel Anthony Ayers Jr.
A man.
Winners, Monday's Oprah.
In the 1980s, you were a rising star. Nothing could stop you. This good-looking, sexy guy.
Just me.
Why did you destroy your own career?
You know what?
Maybe why and how?
Oh, it was very easy. With me, it was never drugs. It was never booze. It was abandonment issues, shame, issues of shame.
So you get angry.
Anger and hardness is a shield that hides and masks other things.
I want to talk about something very painful and very important to you, and that's your marriage to a special lady. You married Carrie Otis in 1992. You were divorced in 1998. Why didn't it work?
Right girl at the wrong time. I like to say, that's easy to say, but that's not really the truth. I mean,
but
that's...
you have said...
We were both great. We were both out of our minds.
But you loved her, you have said,
death.
more than anyone else.
Yes.
And her name is tattooed in your arm.
Yeah.
Carrie Otis became a heroin addict. She has admitted this. And you were with her and helped her break the habit, yes?
I got her off the habit, well, for a period of time.
Do you still love Carrie Otis?
Yeah, I still love her. I love her in a different way, though. I was able after, I waited for her for 8 years to come back.
8 years you kept hoping that something
yes.
after your divorce?
Yeah.
Have you stopped hoping?
Yes, I moved on. This is the first time I've ever been able to really say that and mean it.
Is there anyone in your life now?
No.
In 1991, you quit acting and you went back to boxing. What did boxing give you that acting wasn't giving you?
I thought if I went back to the boxing, I could control the problems I had with
Punch
acting.
it out?
No, I thought if I just got away and then it got in my blood again, you know.
So, why did you quit?
because after about close to 6 years into it, 5.5, I took a couple neurologicals, and I started to get short-term memory loss.
Ooh.
And so, when I went in to take the neuro, I failed it terribly. And I begged the doctor, I begged him, I said, please, I needed 3 more wins. And so he asked me, how much money are you going to make on that WBO fight? I told him roughly what I thought. And he says, he says, let me tell you something right now, you won't be able to count it.
Mickey, it's the story of the wrestler. I mean, you're telling me about boxing, and I saw that movie, and this is a guy who's got to make it no matter what. You're telling me the wrestler is you and the boxing is you, and it's essentially the same story.
Yes.
Are the demons gone?
Most of them are, yes. Let me just put it to you this way. I didn't believe in going to a therapist.
Going to a therapist?
No, for me it would have been easier to go to a priest than a therapist, and I thought only crazy people went to therapy.
And the therapist put the pieces together?
14 years of therapy, and for the first 5 years, 3 days a week, yeah. And I didn't have the money to pay him, and he carried me. I think I ended up owing him like $68,000. And he
stuck with you?
Well, he said to me, I've never let anybody do this, he says, but I know you'll pay me back.
Has he seen the wrestler, your therapist?
Yeah. Let me tell you something. When I have I love this. When I have a premiere in Los Angeles, he knows more people than I do.
What would winning an Academy Award mean to you?
Okay, I'm going to say, you'll probably edit one of these things out, but I'll tell you. First of all, it would mean a great deal to me. It would be a tremendous honor. It would sum up the whole comeback thing, I guess, in a material kind of way. But in the big picture, you can't eat it, you can't it, and it won't get me into heaven.
Thank you, Mickey Rourke.
Thank you, Barbara Walters.
You were chosen this year by People magazine as the sexiest man alive.
Yeah.
Do you think you deserve that title?
No.
The film is still 3 months away, but X-Men Origins Wolverine is one of the most highly anticipated movies of the year. It will be the 4th time Hugh Jackman has played the popular mutant. The normally upbeat Aussie is disguised in sideburns and a bad attitude, a sort of moody Elvis with cutlery. The youngest of 5 kids, Jackman's first big gig was in the Australia TV prison drama called Corelli. He was cast opposite the woman who would become his wife, Deborah Lee Furness, a huge star down under.
Do you remember an officer called Pete?
Oh, what a beautiful morning. Oh, what a beautiful day.
But it was the stage where Jackman would find his voice.
You're doing fine, Oklahoma, Oklahoma, okay.
He was in the London revival of Oklahoma.
I am not boy next door. I don't belong like it before.
Then sensationally portrayed gay icon Peter Allen on Broadway in The Boy from Oz.
Oh, when my baby smiles at me, I go to Rio de Janeiro.
The Boy from Australia has grown into the sort of performer we haven't seen since the movie's golden age. Jackman sings,
One night only, that's all I have to say.
dances, acts,
Essentially to steal his secret, not to improve his act.
It's my job.
Or to fall in love with it.
and can MC like a pro.
Welcome to the American Theatre Wing's 58th Annual Tony Awards.
And though his epic film, Australia, tanked this past year, it was hard to argue with why he was named People magazine's sexiest man alive. His wife would agree. Deborah and Hugh married 12 years ago and are rarely apart. They have 2 adopted children and split their time between Australia and New York.
Something about the audiences here.
Tonight, at age 40, he will attempt to breathe new life into the Oscars. If anybody can do it, Hugh Jackman can. Hugh, you are hosting the Academy Award show for the very first time.
Yes.
Are you nervous?
Oh, a little bit. I mean, I like to call it excited.
Excited?
My acting teacher always said, "No, don't say nervous, you're excited."
Yeah.
I love the Oscars. I've loved it since I was a kid. And you have to understand, even though I'm Australian, we're obsessed with the Oscars. I mean, there won't be a house anywhere in Australia that's not having an Oscar
Why?
party.
Do you see all the movies?
I see all the movies. We're just as obsessed with the Oscars and movies as you are here. It's a truly international phenomenon.
Are you going to sing and dance?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I could mince my way around it and say, oh, maybe, and I'm sure there'll be something.
You were also, you were chosen this year by People magazine, I can vouch for this, as the sexiest man alive.
Yeah.
What does your wife think?
She kind of sees it as vindication. You know, Deb. I mean, you've met Deb. She's like, well, of course, who else would I marry? You know?
When you met her,
Yeah.
she was a big star.
Yeah.
You were not.
At all, no. It's my first job.
And when you came here, you're the star. Does it bother her when people say, excuse me, out of the way, lady, we got to get his picture and so forth? How does she
Sometimes, yeah. I want to make it really clear that there is not an ounce of jealousy, there's not an ounce of competitiveness between us. Deb has only ever had incredibly supportive, excited sort of feelings for anything that's happened in my career.
It's still a love affair with the two of you, though.
Oh, it's a mad love. I'm madly in love with her, and more each day.
Now you have two children, both adopted.
Yes.
You and I have talked a lot about adoption.
Yeah.
They are mixed race, both of them. Was that deliberate?
It was deliberate. When Deb and I tried biologically to have children, and when we went first to talk to someone in Los Angeles about adoption, and he said to me that we turn away children every month who are mixed race because we can't find families for them. And this didn't make sense to me. So for Deb and I, it was a no-brainer. It was like, well, where's the need? The need is obviously mixed race children, and that was it.
We're talking about love and marriage and children, and in The Boy from Oz, which you did on Broadway so fantastically, where you played Peter Allen,
yes,
Australian, gay,
yep,
song and dance man, there were those who said, you're doing it so well, you know, that, don't tell me, I don't care if he's married, he's gay.
Peter Allen has a great line. He goes, I know what you're thinking, you know. You're just sitting there looking at me and thinking, no, is he or isn't he? Well, it's true. I am Australian, you know. Deb used to say, she came about 40 times to the show, and she used to go to the bathroom, and she'd be in the cubicle in the ladies' bathroom. She would hear people going, I know he's married, but I'm sure he is. Is he or isn't he? Is he, isn't? And she said occasionally she would yell out, he isn't. From the cubicle. Silence, you know.
Yeah, exactly. I want to talk about your childhood.
Yes.
5 kids, Australian. Strict father.
Harsh but fair, I think is.
Fair.
Okay.
When you were 8,
yes,
your mother left the family,
yeah,
moved to England,
yeah,
had another child with another man. I mean, that's terrible for an 8-year-old. Did you feel abandoned?
It was confusing. I thought it was a week or two and Mum would come back. It was a very hard time. And I can't pretend it to be otherwise, but I never, ever felt not loved by my mum. I know how hard she finds it to reconcile that period of her life. But we do have a really open relationship, my mum and I. We talk about a lot of things. We talk about everything, including her leaving. So, and I'm at peace with it.
And your dad, this disciplinarian who wanted an education for his kids, he sent you for violin lessons and piano lessons.
Look, my dad is an amazing man. Amazing man. My dad had absolutely no life. If there's ever a moment in my life where I think, oh, I just need to have a couple of days myself, I'll think of Dad and think that was 10 years of 5 children, of being a senior partner at Price Waterhouse, of never getting a minute for himself, ever, for years. I mean, it's extraordinary.
Is he very proud of you?
Yeah, my dad is, I'll never forget Carnegie Hall. I was asked to sing at Carnegie Hall, which was a major, at the time, was about as extraordinary to me as being asked to host the Oscars, right? And I invited Dad to come. And Dad was working, but he came. And he had to fly from Australia. And then he flew back the next day. And when Dad turned up, I told him it was black tie. And so he came with his black tie. And on the day, I found out that it wasn't. I said, "Oh, Dad, it's not black tie. It's just lounge suits." And he says, "Don't worry, I have that." And he came to pick me up at 6:30. The show was on at 8. I opened up the door, and there was Dad in black tie. And I said, "Dad, I meant it. It's not black tie. No one will be wearing black tie." And he said to me, he goes, it makes me a little emotional thinking about it. He said, "My son is singing at Carnegie Hall. It's black tie for me." And if you imagine Carnegie Hall is a bit like an opera house, you can actually see the audience. And he's in one of those tiers that was not that far from me, right at my eye level. And I remember looking out, and I could see tears streaming down his face because he was the only one wearing a black tie in this audience. And he was leaning forward like this, and he just had tears going down his face.
And so do you now, almost.
Almost.
But I'm not going to make you cry. Last thing I will do, I won't make you cry.
Not tonight.
If you had to pick one thing, sing, dance, or act, which?
Act. Yeah.
Most of all, you'd like to act. But at the Academy Awards,
yes,
you're going to sing.
Yeah. Look, I now love singing, and I love dancing.
So you're going to belt it out.
And I do think the Oscars could do with a little more show and a little less biz. Do you know what I mean?
The Barbara Walters Special, brought to you by Kohl's Department Stores.
Thank you for watching. Before we sign off, I should explain that the closing night of Hugh Jackman in his Broadway show, The Boy from Oz, he brought me on stage and did a lap dance, which prompted what you are about to see. When you were in The Boy from Oz, yes, and you were so sensational, I came in the last night and you pulled Matt Damon and me up on the stage and did a lap dance with me.
Yes.
Nobody has done it since.
Really?
Now, would you like to do it now?
I would do it any time. You seem to enjoy it.
Come on. It's all right. Forget the script.
Okay.
Okay, I sit, you stand, right?
Of course.
Okay.
Have we got any music? Okay, Barbara. How you feeling on this Oscar night special? Hey, look at me, baby. Come on. Here we are. You know what? Come on.
Turn off those cameras. We're off and running. I have no more questions. That the musical group, the Jonas Brothers, are real brothers. And they are huge. Tonight, you'll learn why. You may know that the beautiful Anne Hathaway is nominated for Best Actress for Rachel Getting Married. But how has she coped with the ups and downs of this turbulent year? And you may know that Mickey Rourke is nominated for Best Actor for his wrenching performance in The Wrestler. But did you know that a dog saved his life? And the 3 things he says you can't do with an Oscar. And Hugh Jackman is hosting the Academy Awards for the very first time tonight. But we have the story of an even bigger night in his life. Stay tuned for the closing credits because Hugh gives me a gift I will never forget. Much more. Stay with us. First, let's get the name straight. Kevin, age 21, the oldest, the extrovert. Joe, age 19, middle child, heartthrob. Nick, 16, the baby, musical. Together they are the Jonas Brothers, real brothers, the 3 biggest names to capture the hearts of adolescent girls of this century.
ABC7 News.
Tonight on the Barbara Walters Special.
I know you don't like to talk about it, but when you watch your concert, everybody can see that you're wearing a silver band. Can you tell us what symbolically wearing the so-called purity ring means? Describe this past year for me. What have you learned?
I really learned that being vulnerable is not being weak, and that love is not just about giving, it's about receiving as well.
I think when the wife left, you know, it all caved in, and I didn't want to be here. And
You just said, I didn't want to be here. Right. So what you're telling me is that you wanted to die and you were suicidal. Is that what you're telling me?
The night of the Oscars is the epitome of what showbiz is all about. More show than biz, really. That feeling, it could only happen on that night.
Good evening. Welcome to our 28th Academy Award special. 28 years, where will it all end? Probably at a bar like this with a martini. But not yet. So forget everything you think you already know about the people you're about to meet. You may have heard, for example,
tell me thank you for raising good boys.
The family is living back in Dallas now. The brothers have been busy, recording a new album and shooting a new TV series called Jonas for the Disney Channel, set to debut in May. By the way, there is another Jonas brother. Frankie, the bonus Jonas they call him, was born in 2000. He already has his own band, no kidding.
Here we go.
We went to a local theater to see evidence that they are about to become movie stars.
They don't know we're coming, so.
Hi, guys. Their new film, Jonas Brothers, the 3D concert experience, opens on Friday. Okay, here we go. Let us start with Kevin. You describe Joe. Joe, you describe Nick. Nick, you describe Kevin. Kevin?
Okay, so I'm describing Joe. He's, you know, a great front man of the band. It really, each one of us, I think, has our role, but I think for Joe, he really stands out and has that Mick Jagger-esque feel to him.
Huh. Well, listen, Mick Jagger, you know, okay. You describe Nick.
Nick, he's definitely the president. I mean, he's the leader type in the band, for sure.
And signed them to a deal. This time, they got to experience failure together. With no money coming in, they found an audience on the internet and got the attention of Disney's Hollywood Records.
It's Hannah Montana.
Which led to their big break, appearing on Hannah Montana, and then going on tour with its star, Miley Cyrus. And now they fill arenas by themselves. The boys write their own music and play their own instruments. And any time spent with the Jonases on tour reveals a faith-based family.
Bring it in.
Throwing punchlines, no one wins.
Although the boys have been linked with Miley Cyrus, Taylor Swift, and others, they wear purity rings that signal no sex until marriage. Mom and Dad are tour bus chaperones, and perhaps the least likely stage parents you will ever meet. How do you balance your very strong faith with the life of rock stars?
You have to really draw on that faith on a daily basis to know that our strength and every gift that we all have, that the boys have, comes from the Lord.
Every room I walk in, the crew.
In the past few months, they have played Times Square on the headlined the American Music Awards.
Oh, say, can you see?
Sung for the outgoing president and and the incoming first family.
Thank you!
Performed at the Grammys with Stevie Wonder. Team Jonas, living the dream. The Jonas family originally settled in Dallas, where Kevin Sr. preached the gospel and Mom Denise taught sign language. Everybody sang in Dad's church choir. This is Kevin.
I am a man.
A move to New Jersey put Manhattan a short bus ride away. Nick found his way to Broadway in Les Miserables. Joe sang opera in La Boheme. And all three, including Kevin, did commercials.
He talks like crazy.
They picked up instruments, started playing together. But the drive, and some would say the raw talent, rested in baby Nick's soul. He was the first signed to a record deal. He was also the first to see his record flop. Then a producer at Columbia heard the boys perform together